Nigeria and India have renewed ties in areas of mutual understandings to push them forward as two nations that have been so much into a lot of very important relations in years past and even up until now. The Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi, and Nigeria's President Bola Tinubu actually have said they're renewing what they're describing as a strategic partnership between the giant of Asia and the giant of Nigeria, of Africa, beg your pardon. So let's see how this will make this country move forward. Earlier on the show today, I had Mustafa Issa, who mentioned the fact that Nigeria and India started almost from the same place in 1960. If you want to weigh how much both countries have fared so far, so good, not so good, maybe, I don't know which other way you want to describe this. But today we want to see how we can deepen these ties, how indeed Nigeria can really maximize all the opportunities that are there in terms of economic benefits in our relations with India. Joining us this morning is an international business development and trade finance expert, Bamidele Ayemibo. Bamidele, we thank you for making our time to be with us on News Hub today.
Thank you very much. Good morning. How are you today?
Very well. So what did you make of having to host a Prime Minister of India in Nigeria on Sunday, the issues discussed, and what we have as information to what happened between the president, two leaders, moving forward our relations?
Very good one, and very necessary. We need this kind of cooperation, particularly for a country like India, with a very huge population. A number of agreements were signed: economic cooperation agreement, double taxation avoidance agreement, and the bilateral investment treaty. I mean, this is a country of over a population of about 1.4 billion people, largest population in the world now, overtaking China, with a GDP of about 3.5 trillion. I mean, it's a massive market for us to take advantage of. So I think that kind of relationship, that kind of agreement, that kind of cooperation is extremely necessary right now that we're talking about $1 trillion economy.
Honestly, and that's one place that a lot of Nigerians who are watching and who believe so much in what we can do as a people in terms of our economy that's witnessing some challenges at the moment are looking forward to. With regards to this meeting on Sunday, some people are saying that India had gone through some phases that we seem to still be passing through as a nation today. For instance, in terms of power, we just finished talking about energy crisis in the country, which is also trying to make the best of. In what ways can Nigeria cash in on what India has to our benefits?
India had a lot of benefits for us, actually. What I'm not sure of is what the government really hoped to achieve, because I noticed in the conversation, I was trying to check some news online. I noticed the fact that Nigeria and India agree on a long-term contract for crude oil and liquefied natural gas, compressed natural gas, and liquefied petroleum gas as some of the area of cooperation. But also, I tried to check up the data in India, particularly looking at the what India economy look like in terms of demand. So currently, when you look at export of Nigeria to India, the export of Nigeria to India currently about 90 to 91% is petroleum. So I'm not surprised why that is what we are talking about. But it's also interesting to know. That Nigeria export, as much as we are doing up to about $3 billion in crude oil export to India, but that is just about 1.5% of India's demand. So that's why I said this is a very, very strategic meeting, because the opportunity is huge for us in India. So if India is buying over $300 billion worth of petroleum product, a sort of crude oil, our contribution is just 1.5%. 1.5%. They are buying over 300. We are just doing about 3. Now, when you look at what they buy, it speaks a lot about India, actually, because when I was looking at what constitutes about 70% of India's import include crude oil and gas, which is about 32%, machineries, which is about 15%, raw materials like chemical, which is about 4%, and also metals, precious metal, which is about 10%. About 70% of their import all has to do around manufacturing. So if we're going to be able to do a lot with India, we must be looking at intermediate products and raw material we want to ship to India. But like I said, currently, which is why this meeting is very important, I don't know if we're going to be able to take advantage of it, but we have a huge opportunity for market in India, but our export to India is very, very small compared to what India is buying. And that's why I think this kind of agreement become very important, and for government also to support businesses to be able to take advantage of this opportunity that this relationship is going to create for Nigeria.
You said we're not new to India. We've been old-time business partners. Let me say we are into each other as two nations who see opportunities therein. But in all of this, and it's not about India alone, Nigeria goes into bilateral relations and it fulfills its own side of the bargain, but it hardly ever is able to take up the opportunities that she can, when even in the face of the fact that you can. So in this present day Nigeria, as you take a look at the areas of interest between both nations, what does Nigeria need to do at the moment to start to harness every opportunity possible?
Number one is to make available to the public the opportunities based on the agreement that have been signed. We've seen the agreement, we've seen the date, we've not seen the detail of the agreement. There should be a stakeholder meeting with the private sector. Look, this agreement, these are the opportunities available. These are the items we can now ship to India and be able to reduce taxes on those products to be able to take advantage of. Because the idea of that is to be able to reduce the cost of shipment to India and make us more competitive. So I think creating awareness among the organized private sector, working with Lagos Chamber of Commerce, NASIMA, Manufacturers of Nigeria, Abuja Chamber of Commerce, all the organized private sector, there must be a stakeholder meeting to let them know these are the details of what was signed, these are the opportunities that we take advantage of, but more importantly, these are the things the government is going to be doing to support businesses in Nigeria to take advantage of those opportunities. Because what is the usefulness of the opportunities if Nigeria cannot take advantage of it? Because you just talk about issue of power, the support that government is giving as far as manufacturing is concerned to be able to get the manufacturers to take advantage of it. Conversion of product intermediate. I've just mentioned some of the major items that is being that they buy. Currently, Nigeria export mineral fuel to China. That's petroleum product, edible fruits and nuts to China. To India rather. Fertilizer export to India. Coffee is being exported. Aluminum article is being exported. Oil seed is being exported. Red iron is being exported. But when you look at the percentage of our export, even though our exports are in millions of dollars, but when you look at the percentage of our export, in fact, the highest from the data, when your colleague informed me about this yesterday, I tried to check up some of the data. The highest I've seen is about 2.5% of the market size, meaning we are not even scratching the surface at all. So your question is very important and pertinent. Government needs to make this information available to the public and then let the public, private sector know how they are going to take advantage of it and the support government will be giving to be able to get us to take advantage of these opportunities.
Indeed. Now let's go to the area of security or defense. We heard that in the joint statement, the two leaders have pledged to support each other in area of tackling terrorism, especially in the Indian Ocean and the Gulf of Guinea as we speak. In what ways can India help Nigeria?
India have built a lot of military might, actually. Not just because of their population, because as country advance in production, in manufacturing, it rubs off on every area. Even though India is like the pharmacy of the world, India is also doing a lot within the military space. India have visited the space. India is doing a lot. So, recently, when the issue between Israel and Hamas started, and the Houthis were actually trying to get back to Israel, what they did was to go to the Red Sea to be able to attack every vessel that is going to Israel or every vessel of an of Israeli allies. And India moved in. Now, why did India move in? India is very much aware that, look, we are a major exporter from Far East Asia. If we don't stop these guys, they are going to increase the cost of shipment to Europe. So instead of going through Red Sea, Suez Canal, enter Europe, they have to go through Indian Ocean, down Atlantic Ocean to Europe, which is a long distance, and increasing the cost of distribution of their products around the world. They move in to be able to resist the activity of Houthis there. So I'm not surprised at them offering to assist also Nigeria in this regard, because they're already doing it. And they actually needed to do it to be able to ensure that they are able to trade. Because if we are producing and because of terrorists or terrorism on the sea, we are not able to ship, it impacts on our economy. And Narendra Modi, the Prime Minister of India, they are very ambitious as to be able to actually overtake China. They are doing a lot to be able to, because they are seeing themselves as an alternative to China because of COVID. A lot of people are moving out of China and creating alternative in Southeast Asia and of course also in India. And that's exactly why they needed to ensure that they create that market by protecting the sea and ensuring that the activities of terrorists on the sea is reduced. So I believe strongly they have the capability to be able to help Nigeria as far as terrorism is concerned.
I do hope that the way you sound so optimistic is how we'll quickly get all of these waterways, really safe, because, it's not just about the border, the land borders that we're talking about. We hear also a lot of things going on our waters. All right, right now, one question that came to mind, personally speaking, on Sunday, just as I told you that it's always easier for Nigeria to keep its own part of the bargain with other nations that we enter bilateral relations with, but we hardly ever are able to take up the opportunities that even those nations are willing to provide, perhaps maybe because we have some inadequacy in some areas that we need to be able to fully maximize all those opportunities that are present in those nations. And I'm going to take this one because everybody knows that Nigeria is perhaps the biggest economic partners with India on the continent of Africa, going to about $14.9 billion since in the year 2022. 2023 figures out here. We were looking forward to what 2024 will build for us. Here's my question. In Nigeria, there are reports that officially, legally, as we want to believe, there are about 60,000 Indians who live here. It could be more. And about 200 companies that are really spread across Nigeria, owned by Indians, so to speak. But same can be said of Nigerians, so to speak, in India. What are those things that we need to know as a people to be able to go to other areas and really explore?
I'm very correct because, they are in Nigeria, and the major thing, the area they are in is trade and manufacturing. And that's why one of the agreements that was signed actually has to do with investment, bilateral investment treaty. Like I said, we've not seen the detail of that bilateral investment treaty, but the facts remain that we definitely need to begin to go out to do business in other parts of the world. Dangote has done it on the African continent, being in more than, I think, about 10 or more countries in which they has invested and doing business. And a number of Nigerian banks also have done that in Africa. We need to now begin to do that in India. Sincerely, we really need to do that in India. And I think the reason we have not taken advantage of that is, when you're trying to enter a new market, you enter using overseas sales representative, and then you can have overseas subsidiary company before you set up a brand. I think the challenge is that we have not really taken advantage of the opportunity in India. And when you have not taken advantage of that opportunity in that country, then there's no incentive to be able to go and set up. Maybe because of this double taxation agreement now, bilateral investment treaty now, maybe that will be an encouragement, because I really don't, apart from the data I see as to the fact that we are not doing enough in trade with India, I don't know why we are not setting up, we're not having that kind of level of businesses right there in India. Maybe the agreement would be a solution to that, but more importantly is to let the people know, because, it also has to do with the information you have, the information available, because these countries have deliberate policy as far as technology is concerned, as far as pharmacy, drug is concerned. And they've done a lot well in service export also, because of the deliberate policy of this country. We then need to do exactly the same thing. deliberate policy to begin to do serious business in India, setting up branches of our organization, of our organization in Nigeria, based on the bilateral investment treaty that have now been signed.
President Bola Tinubu is in Brazil attending the G20 summit. I was invited there according to reports, and such high-powered meetings, people expect leaders of the world to be able to take advantage of the things that they can push for their countries. Now, Nigeria has been trying to see if it could secure a permanent seat in the UN Security Council, but it's not been that. If you see the way Nigeria is really showing up for BRICS, which India plays a very vital role in, what do you see the relations between Nigeria and India being able to bring to the table when chickens come home to roost? Sometimes you are not there when your case is being determined. How can India be able to work with Nigeria in achieving this dream and others alike within the international space?
For the UN Security Council, I think we, as Nigerians, we are still depending a lot. We are still depending a lot, even for our own security, on outsiders. There's not much happening internally on our own security. So if we are going to be lobbying for that kind of opportunity, then we need to show also the fact that when the responsibility also comes for us, apart from providing our soldiers, which have been doing so well with UN, we will also be able to support in all other areas with homegrown technology. Number one issue. Number two, about BRICS. Now that Trump is on the driving seat in the US, I'm not sure if BRICS is going to be able to have the same momentum it used to have. Remember, the reason BRICS having the momentum is having is because Russia, China have issues with the US. Now Trump is on driver's seat, and he's trying to negotiate to see how to stop the war between Ukraine and Russia, and also trying to mend fences with a number of these countries. And the goal is actually to ensure that they are still able to have better relationship with the US. Even if BRICS go ahead with the currency they want to come up with, I don't know how strong that will be, because Trump is a business person and of course always trying to strike deals, and he's already working on a number of them. I'm not sure if that, even if it's going to do the light of the day, probably as strong as the plan for it to be before now.
So before I wrap up with you, it was surprising to a lot of Nigerians to hear that President Bola Tinubu conferred on Prime Minister Modi, the Grand Commander of the Order of Niger, which is Nigeria's second highest national honor. So what did you make of that?
It's a way of telling you that, it's a way of communicating to India that we cherish you, we appreciate you, we value you, and we want you to be part of us. So now, it's like giving you a chieftaincy title in Nigeria. Basically, when they give you a chieftaincy title in a town, they are expecting you to also add value to that town, to contribute to your quota for the growth and development of that town. I think that's the message is communicating to the Prime Minister of India, to be able to support as much as possible initiatives that will advance the cause of the relationship between Nigeria and India.
To be there, honestly. So it's like a chieftaincy title that tells you that you're part of this system, and so you get honored in that. I think it's really generating lots of controversy there. All the same congratulations to
Prime Minister. Some will be for, some will be against. I mean, that's Nigeria.
So to speak. We'll be speaking with international business development and trade finance expert Bamidele Ayemi, but we thank you. Indeed, it's always a pleasure to speak with you. Thank you.